Hey everyone, I read this book a little while ago, just getting around to reviewing it now, The Undercover Economist, Tim Harford. And like the other Tim Harford book I reviewed, which is How to Make the World Add Up, this is absolutely brilliant. Um, I'm just going to read everything I can by Tim Harford now because I'm impressed by both his books, really impressed. So, required reading, it brings the power of economics to life, according to Stephen D. Levitt, author of Freakonomics, which a lot of people will know. A masterclass, Financial Times, wonderful, The Times. I like the FT. And it does actually matter to me who the reviews are by, because I was in a bookstore the other day and I picked up a book. It's another one about economics, I think. And it looked good. I read the back. I thought, yeah, this looks interesting. Then I saw on the front there was a comment, a review. You won't call it a review, it's a couple of lines, by Piers Morgan. And I put it straight back on the shelf. I felt like I picked up a fresh piece of dog shit. So yeah, the the reviews on this are from David Bodanis, author of Electric Universe and E equals MC squared. The Times, The Economist, Martin Wolf, author of Why Globalization Works. Reading this book, I feel like I've really learned a lot, and it's well written, really well written, and it's an entertaining read. So David Bananas agrees with that. Sorry if I'm butchering your name, David. If you ever watch this video, I doubt it. Harford writes like a dream, and he's also one of the leading economic thinkers of his generation. From his book, I found out why there's a Starbucks in every corner, what Bob Geldof needs to learn to make development aid work properly, and how not to get duped in an auction. Reading The Undercover Economist is like spending an ordinary day wearing x-ray goggles. Yes, it is. It's really good. Ever wondered why the gap between rich and poor nations is so great, or why it's so difficult to get a foot on the property ladder, or where the banks went wrong? This book offers the hidden story behind these and other forces that shape our day-to-day lives, often without our knowing it. Yes, it does. Lively and witty. After reading this book, a trip to the supermarket is an entirely different experience. Yes, it is. A playful guide to the economics of everyday life, The Economist. As Tim Harford demonstrates brilliantly in this enjoyable book, the powerful underlying ideas of economics can, in the hands of the right person, illuminate every aspect of the world we inhabit. It is brilliant. Some of the things it talks about are, what economics is really about. So economics just isn't about dry numbers and boring interest rate theory and everything. It's about how the whole world works, the world we live in, the interaction between people, between businesses, why some businesses make money, why some businesses don't make money. So, for example, it starts off the first chapter, I think it's called Who Pays for Your Coffee? Let's just go and find acknowledgements, we don't need that. Preface to the second edition, introduction. Who pays for your coffee? And from this, I'll just tell you what I got. I found out that there are secret items on the menus of most coffee shops. Secret because you'll never see them actually displayed on the board because they're the cheapest items. Not necessarily the worst, just the cheapest. For example, I think the best coffees in London are probably from Pret, which is also the cheapest, I think. And that's not using the Pret subscription, which only works if you visit a certain number of times. If it's on your morning walk or something. But the way that this is fascinating. So coffee shops introduced, I can't remember which one it was, fair trade coffee, and the fair trade coffee is about 10 pence pricier than a not fair trade coffee, let's call it. But to the actual coffee growers who are apparently getting a fairer deal, they get about 0.1 or 0.01 penny extra. So the markup is 100 times or so what it would be just to make it fair trade coffee. Why are they doing this? It's because ideally for a business, what you want to do is everybody pays as much as they're willing to pay. Some people will be willing to pay a lot more. So all the coffee is the same, let's say, but by calling one fair trade, rather than actually just saying pay as much as you're willing to, that's not a really good pricing strategy, is it? It has to be more covert. Fair trade. So the people who don't really care about an extra 10 pence on a cup of coffee, so they're willing to pay that much more. Oh, fair trade, I'm being a better person. Big profit. And then I think they stopped doing that because it didn't look so good when they got found out, right? And so then you've got the Starbucks trick where you've got, you can have your normal cup of coffee for, I don't know what they charge now, £2-3, or you can have it with cream, which costs Starbucks maybe half a pence more for 50 pence more, right? Or you can have it with super cream and magic sprinkles, which costs, I don't know, £4 more, but it costs them half a penny more. So all of that is designed just to make the people pay as much as they're willing to pay. So you get the maximum profit out of every possible person. So that's just from the first chapter, which also talks about scarcity values. The only thing that's always going to make you money is scarcity value. If you've got something that is not easily obtainable elsewhere without a lot of effort, then you can charge more. Then you have higher profits. Okay, um, fascinating book. I'm ranting on, aren't I? So then what else is there? Perfect markets in the world of truth. So in the world of truth, everybody's perfectly honest about what it costs and what they're willing to pay, and everything works beautifully. And for an economist, if somebody is not making money where they could make money, and also the consumer could be better off, that's the ideal outcome. Economics is more a behavioural thing, I think, than a numbers thing. But the way the two mesh together is really beautiful. And then there's one in here about supermarkets, I think, isn't there? Let's see. What supermarkets don't want you to know. So there's this idea that some supermarkets are much more expensive than others, and it's not always the case. But what will happen is, depending on where they are and what their customers are willing to pay, they will stock and put prominently where they're easy to find the more expensive items. And you can often, for example, there's an example in here, I think it's from Washington, where you can do a shop pretty much as cheaply in Safeway, which used to be called Soviet Safeway, because it was so, basic, and Whole Foods, which is like a kind of upmarket shop, right? But you can actually buy pretty much the same things. It's just if you go looking for the own brand Safeway orange juice, because it's Safeway, it's right there when you walk in. But if you want a cheap substitute to the Whole Foods orange juice in Whole Foods, you got to search around. And also things which are like for like, I never put next to each other. So you might have, example, a store that sells lots of organic fruit, all right? But what you'll never ever find is the organic next to the non-organic of the same variety. So you never find organic apples next to normal apples, or organic, let's say, because you'll notice that they look pretty much the same, or actually non-organic tend to look a bit tastier. But these ones cost 50% or 50% more or twice as much more. So what they'll do is they put the apples next to the kiwis, so it makes it much harder. And oftentimes, if you just look from the top shelf to the bottom shelf, you can think, hang on, here's a beer that's £1.80, and here's the same beer in the gluten-free section, and it's £3.80. It's literally just bothering to look up and down. Why do supermarkets have sales rather than drastically reducing the price of everything, so and so, regularly or infrequently or however they want to do it? Why not just charge a lower price for everything? Because then they don't get the people who are willing to pay more for certain things paying more. It's actually much more effective for them. They use the sale items to see who's interested in buying which things, and then that allows them to target the sale of those things and manipulate the prices. So you can save a lot of money. All right, I'm still recording, but the recording got disturbed, so if the screen just went crazy there and you wondered why is he staring at the screen, that's why I was staring at the screen. Why do some nations stay... There's a lot in this book, but this is already quite long, this is 8 minutes. Why do some nations stay poor? Guess what? It's if they're corrupt, they stay poor. I was going to say, not like the UK, but the UK is pretty damn corrupt as well. Because very corrupt states, let's say you want to grow the economy, so you want to start a business, right? But if it's a very corrupt state, like I think the one they're using here, example, will it come back to me? It might do. It might do. I can't remember it for now. If you start a business, then you have to pay huge tariffs to the government, and you're not going to make any money anyway, so why start a business? If you go to university and get a good education, well, there's no jobs anyway, so why go to university? So where there is not a system set up, a fair democratic system that rewards hard work, nobody's going to do any hard work. Nobody, it's so the country stays terribly poor. The other thing in here, which I really love, is because it's just a slap in the face to everything that we've been asked to believe by the press in the West. High taxes will destroy the economy. No, they don't, because if it's taxed, we've got higher taxes than we've had since the Second World War, under the last 13 years of Tory government, and the country has turned to a pile of shit. And they're going to say it's because high taxes destroy the economy. No, they've been cutting taxes on businesses. The tax burden falls on the poorer people. And well, let's just put it like this, right? Where there's free markets, things aren't necessarily good. Where there's free markets with a lot of government intervention, the evils of communism, things get really, really good. So when communism kicked off, before they became personality cults like they did under Stalin, guess what? The Western governments were thinking, damn, their economies are growing 10 times faster now. Maybe we should all be communist. But then it turns into a cult, Stalinist cult. Everyone's too scared to tell them that nothing's working, so they'll get shot. So everything goes to shit. People starve to death. The same thing happened under Mao. So the problem isn't communism. The problem is personality cults. But actually, just as many people died in famines, communism, people starved to death. Just as many people died in capitalist famines, because colonialization is part of the capitalist process. Yeah. Well, it's all business, and if I can come in and murder all your people, and I'm just a better businessman. Yeah. The Great Dying, 5 million Native Americans destroyed by white invaders. So you see how this book covers a lot of ground, how it's really, really good. The countries that grow the fastest, and the country that's been reducing poverty faster than any other country in history. I mean, back in the 1970s, this was one of the poorest countries in the world, now one of the biggest economies in the world. Guess what? Communist, what's the second word? Socialist China. Because the money there, that the profits there from state-owned, that evil word, yeah, state-owned businesses, are actually put back into the economy. Yeah, really, really fascinating book. I suggest you read it. 11 minutes is too long. Thank you for watching till the end. And read anything else by Tim Harford as well.